Hello, I'm back for part 3 of speaking about my eating disorder story and trying to help as many people as I can while raising awareness about some misconceptions that have been made. I want to start off by saying that a lot of people do not think that a full recovery from an eating disorder is possible. Even though I have moments of like, I'm not going to recover, I'm never going to recover, like, they're right, I'm complex, I'm too much of a difficult case to reach a full recovery. But there's so much out there on the media that a full recovery is possible, and I, as well as you, shouldn't be hopeless that you're never going to reach a full recovery, because if you think that, you probably won't. You need to try and dig deep and find even a little bit of hope that you will one day be recovered. There's a lot of people out there that say that, they have, they have recovered as much as they can. They still live with eating disorder thoughts, but they know how to cope with it and how to live with it. So, like, some of the people say that although the thoughts are still there, they happen less frequently and they're able to cope with them and control them through healthier coping mechanisms and techniques they've learned, meaning the thoughts don't actually have the same impact on their lives that they did prior to recovery. Recovery is different for each and everyone. Like, everyone's recovery journey will different. Everyone's journeys after, continuously making those recovery choices will be different. And no one story is going to be the same. So, as they say, eyes on your own plate, focus on your own journey. Recovery from an eating disorder, as Beat have highlighted, is like riding a bike for the very first time. You can fall at any point. It can seriously hurt and can really knock your confidence. But by getting up and back on the bike, you'll show your bicycle who's boss. So in this case, your eating disorder. The more you get back on track with recovery, the more you're showing the eating disorder that you are the boss. And then finally, you'll know how to ride the bike like someone else. It's very important to remember that eating disorder recovery is hardly ever a straightforward process, because when you're in recovery, you're having to cope with emotions and thoughts that the eating disorder has numbed, and trying to find new ways to cope with them in a healthier, more fulfilling way that will give you a better future. And, meanwhile, the eating disorder can make you think that you are in control when you're listening to not having the next meal or snack or exercising that bit more. It can make you feel like you are in control, but actually control comes from showing the eating disorder that you are boss and you value what they've done or what they've said to you to try and protect you, but you need to control your life in a different way now that's going to help you survive and live your life, which is recovery actions. So that is eating three meals, 3 snacks a day at minimum, and in some cases going cold turkey with exercise, which I've had to do in the past, but I end up exercising again and it does kind of go out of control. But I know that I do have to feel my body now, and I'm trying my best to do it. But anyway, I'll go back to my story and continuing what I was saying and finished off in part 2. When I got home after my first admission, I did become a complete shell of myself again, because all the thoughts and feelings and emotions all flooded and overwhelmed me, reminding me why I use eating disorder behaviours and why I need to go back. And it was really, really hard to fight back, so I did become a shell of myself. I wasn't allowed to even go a walk around the block. It was very hard, but I needed to try and sit with it. And then the anxiety hit and I was struggling to leave the house. But I went back to exercising in my bedroom as my thoughts were so intrusive, because I was eating a prescribed meal plan by the eating disorder dietitian that I got while I was in hospital, and I wasn't allowed to leave the house. I struggled so much to fight back, and it all felt really overwhelming and really lonely. My treatment was awful then, and to be honest, it hasn't got any better over the 4 years. I was struggling with my intake again, and I was admitted back to Caithness General a week later because of chest pains again and just feeling really, really physically unwell again, so I had to go back to hospital. And it was horrible, but thankfully I was only in hospital for a night. I was in HDU again because of seizures that were triggered and my heart rate being very low. I was back in HDU, but thankfully the following day I managed to really dig deep and fight my way home. So I made sure I had my breakfast and lunch, and then I got home again. I managed to stay out of hospital until about August 2021, as I had really relapsed in June 2021. I relapsed because I just couldn't cope with my body changing, and I just felt so out of control. The eating disorder service had given me a therapist when I was first admitted to hospital, and I met her while I was on the ward of Rigmore. And to be honest, she wasn't much help to me. I feel really bad saying that, but it wasn't really helpful. And it was decided after 2 weeks of trying CBT therapy, which is cognitive behavioural therapy, that it wasn't for me. And I just felt really quite knocked. Like, I know, like, not every therapy is going to work for each individual, but we did try DBT. But then again, after the first week, it was decided that no, that wasn't for me. I just felt like I didn't get much of a chance. And I was discharged from that therapist in around June 2021, and I was put on just a monitoring protocol because things weren't improving. So I was just constantly weighed each week and bloods amongst appointments with the eating disorder consultant. And then I was admitted to hospital in 2021 because it was decided that I needed a refeeding admission again. And this was really hard. In 2022, I went through a very long assessment with a nurse from the personality disorder service, as the eating disorder service came to the conclusion that I might also have borderline personality disorder, which is keeping me trapped from moving forwards. I was like, no, that's not my diagnosis. Like, I don't have that. Like, it's not me. Like, but I was in fact diagnosed with moderate to severe emotionally unstable personality disorder, also known as BPD. It can be called different things, and it can be quite a taboo illness, I think, and it's another thing, there's not much awareness out there, but it's really horrible to live with. The more I went through things with personality disorder nurse, the more it kind of made sense. And I didn't want another label on me because I have anorexia nervosa. I don't want to have another thing on top of me, but this diagnosis did give me a better understanding of myself, and that I'm not just too sensitive, and that I do see things very differently and feel things very differently to someone who doesn't have EUPD. And it's really hard to live with because the littlest of things can spiral me into a huge breakdown. And I've never been violent to other people, but I'm always punishing myself, and it did really make sense. And I can't remember what, I think it was about, I had 2 admissions in 2022, and to be honest, they were practically back to back because I was admitted in September 2022 to WIC Caithness General. I was there for, I think, about 2 weeks for refeeding, again on the nasogastric tube, and it was really difficult because that is kind of the first admission I really felt like a huge problem to the health system, and I shouldn't feel like that, no one should feel like that, but I just felt like I was being a brat because my blood pressure was low. Like, one nurse made a big hoo-ha because my arms were so thin and I needed a child's blood pressure cuff, which means she would have had to look for another one. And I remember being on these blood clot injections to prevent blood clots, which went into my stomach. And I remember one of the nurses, before she gave it to me, she lifted my top up, and obviously she seen I was thin, but when she was like, oh my god, this is really bad, that really, really hurt my feelings because not only I didn't see myself as it was as big as a deal as she made it, but for her to say that, you wouldn't say that to someone who was severely underweight because of a physical illness, so I don't know why I should have been treated any different. But I was discharged from Caithness General after 2 weeks, and I was home for about a week. Obviously I was getting bloods and my weight done, and my weight had really dropped, so it was decided I was really high risk and I needed to go back to hospital, but I was adamant I wasn't going back to Caithness General because of the horrific experience I did have. And I was breaking down, I kept getting phone calls from the eating disorder team and Caithness General trying to get me to go, but I just couldn't do it because I remembered how I felt after that admission. It was horrible. So it was decided that I would go to Raigmore. I had to go by ambulance, but if I didn't accept that admission to Raigmore, I was going to be detained and it would have been taken out of my choice. I would have had to go regardless because I would have been detained. And I still didn't want to go, but then my occupational therapist at the time, she did come up and she talked to me about it, and she did really help me, and I did go. to Regmore, and I was put by ambulance. It was a very, very long wait outside the hospital. I think I was out waiting for about 5 hours. It was really long. But I went, and again, it was really, really hard to accept. My friend who lives in Inverness made it a little bit easier because it was the end of October, but she decorated my bed for Christmas. Like, she put lights around my bed, and also the nurses like put tinsel on my feeding stand, and it just made it feel a bit more homely and less, it didn't feel like as much as, like, obviously I was in a hospital environment, and I knew I was in a hospital environment, but just having those little things made it a little bit easier. And yet I was on bed rest, I was wheeled to the toilet, and I wasn't allowed to walk for, I think I was in about for a month, and I wasn't allowed to walk at all. But the nursing staff were also lovely, and even the healthcare worker even like moved my bed to the window so I could see a really nice sunset. And it was a better experience for me in a really awful time. I went through my first lot of treatment for EUPD in the start of 2023. I did support and self-management, and I think it was like 2 sessions for 2 weeks, I think. So like, I think it was on a Tuesday and a Wednesday for 2 weeks. And I did find it really helpful, and it was good to be in a group with other people who suffer it, so I knew I wasn't alone. But the whole hospital admission relapse recovery occurred over and over again. Each time I was hitting a new low, and I just didn't feel like I could get out. There was a way out for me. It was really difficult, and one admission was to the specialised eating disorder unit in Aberdeen, which is quite a distance from where I actually live, so it was really hard being so far away, and especially because I was on a unit, so all my behaviours were being called out, and you were observed, and you weren't even allowed to, like, for the first while I wasn't allowed to go to the toilet on my own. Like, the door had to be open just in case I was using behaviours to compensate while I was at the toilet, and it was really difficult. I wasn't even allowed to shower for the first while, and because I was really physically unwell. And when I was basically assessed for a shower, my temperature dropped too low, so then showers were put off for a further week, and then thankfully I was allowed a shower weekly, I think it was. It was really quite difficult because I was on a unit with other people with eating disorders, and all the girls were lovely, but eating disorders can be really competitive, and you can pick up other people's behaviours, and it's just really difficult because you're all there basically for similar issues. And I remember being on the unit, and often I often felt like just like I was being a brat, like I was just a child that had a tantrum, and I was being punished. It felt awful. Like, I was struggling to eat in half an hour for meals, because it was half an hour for our meals and 15 minutes for snack, and I was struggling to eat the main meals in the half an hour. And then they were okay with me for the first while, I was new on the unit, but then it got to the point that it was being enforced, and if I hadn't finished the meal in the half an hour, then it was put to an ensure, or if I hadn't started the meal within like 15 minutes, then I was straight to the insure or made progress. And it was really difficult because even if I'd eaten basically like half of the food on my plate, I would still have to take an insure. It was really hard, but I do believe it did save my life. I just wished that it would have been the last admission, but unfortunately it wasn't. And that was in 2023 that I was there, and I'd already had an admission to Caithness General Hospital. I was admitted on my birthday in 2023. On my 23rd birthday, I was admitted to hospital because my mum and my friend had come to see me, of course, for my birthday and to give me my presents and my card, and I was just completely lifeless. I was back to refusing water. I hadn't eaten and I had walked quite a long distance. I won't say numbers, but I was exercising really a lot again. And my friend was like to my mum, we need to call NHS 24. And so they did, and then an ambulance was sent, and my blood sugar was dangerously low and I was at very high risk of taking a hypo. So I was admitted to Caithness General Hospital, and I didn't expect to have been there for a whole month. That was very difficult, but I knew I needed to be there. And then I was admitted to the eating unit in about August 2023 after a week's stint in Regmore Hospital for refeeding. And yeah, it was very, very difficult. And so all in all, like, I had about 4 admissions in 2023 alone. I had also been admitted to Caithness General in about July 2023, just for about 3 nights, because I was very weak and my blood sugar was very low at admission and I was dehydrated, so I was admitted. I just feel like I've just been like a revolving door patient, but I just haven't had the right treatment, and I feel like if I had had the right treatment, then I probably wouldn't have been in this position that I've been in for so long. In 2024, last year, I was discharged from the eating disorder service in the February because I had relapsed about 2 months after coming out of the eating disorder unit, and because things weren't improving, and I was then told I was too complex and that they didn't think I would have recovered from an eating disorder, which made me feel really hopeless, and it really made me spiral downhill. I still had contact with the community mental health team. I had an occupational therapist at the time who was helpful. She was the one that helped me move to my first house in 2022, and she helped with the decorating and stuff, and she has been really helpful to me. I no longer see her, but I was still with her in 2024, and then I was discharged from her because I just wasn't in a physical position to be able to actually, do what I wanted to do, like activities and things. But after being discharged from the eating disorder service in February 2024, my mum was concerned about me, so she made another appointment for me to go see the GP, and I was emergency referred back to the eating disorder service. I had to go through the whole assessment process again, but I was seen within a week, and I'm grateful for that. I had to go through the whole assessment and what my eating habits were like then, my exercise habits, but my health just continued to deteriorate. I really thought I'd clicked with the eating disorder therapist, and I think I did, and I think I am grateful for her, but they were trying to get me to go to hospital from about April to about, well, May time, when I said yes, I'll go. I was going to go to hospital in about the start of April. I went to Caithness General after it was decided I needed to go because of my bloods meeting a new threshold. But then there was hope, like it just wasn't organised, and I was waiting for ages, and there was so much confusion about what was happening, and it just was so overwhelming to me. I decided no, I wasn't staying, so I left, and I did run away from the hospital, and I do remember my dad running after me and grabbing me, but it was just a horrible time. But then I decided in May 2024 I would go to hospital. I'm going to finish this here because, again, I've spoken for quite a while, but anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll continue in part 4, I think. Thank you.